That is us in our segment of our international news, and we get to see the interactions between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran there, including the ongoing conversations to come to a conclusion to the month-long war between the two nations, of course, with Israel intertwined in there. And what is happening at this level is discussions for a comprehensive peace plan. We've seen, we had, it started with conversations in Islamabad, Pakistan, where delegations from Iran, led by the Speaker, and a delegation from the United States of America, led by the Vice President J.D. Vance, sat in there to have a conversation about how they can find a lasting solution to this. There was no agreement in there, and since then, we have seen exchange of documents between the two sides as far as what points they can agree on to take shape in this particular situation. Hope.
Yes.
Conversation, exchanging documents, and indeed the interaction between the two nations. What do you see happening in there, and are you optimistic we are going to have a solution soon?
Well, what I can say is that I only hope there will be a solution, because we are seeing, of course, Iran reviewing some of these things. They're reviewing the latest U.S. offer. And then, of course, we can only hope that good things come out of it, you know. So I do not know, but I can say that let's hope that good things come out of these agreements. Although I do not know why the U.S. is also planning to, they are renewing their threats. So,
well, you see, diplomacy is played in different ways, and there is a concept we call gunboat diplomacy, which happens in a manner of you threaten the person you're talking to such that they easily agree to your position. In fact, sometimes you even go ahead to create a bit of harm to them so that they find themselves in no position but to say, okay, we have agreed, because they want to find a quick peace and get out of the situation you've put them into. So I think that is what the United States is opting for by the continued threats. But we also understand that Iran has also not backed down. They continue saying, no, we are not afraid of you, and if you really want it, bring it on. We are ready to show you what we have in stock. And of course, we have also seen Iran say that, in fact, they're even much more ready than they were before the war started. And they have said, should it happen again, they have now capacity to take the war even beyond the Gulf, beyond the Middle East. They have been traditionally structured in attacking U.S. interests in that region. Now they say they want to even get further to other regions of the world if they think they don't have the capacity.
Yes. And of course, I'd just like to read out some of the terms that the U.S. offered. Now, there's some official statements here, and of course, some leaked details. And of course, among those terms that the U.S. is offering is nuclear red lines, saying that Iran must halt all uranium enrichment for at least 12 years and surrender its current stock of 440 kg of 60% enriched uranium. And of course, among other things, is that the U.S. would gradually lift primary and secondary sanctions, well, of course, in regards to economic relief, and release billions of dollars in frozen Iranian assets. But also, both sides would end their respective blockades and reopen the Strait of Hormuz to toll-free international traffic within 30 days. So, of course, there are also some recent stumbling blocks that have been there. Of course, some of them including the acceptable counter-offer. Of course, earlier this week, Trump rejected an Iranian 14-point counter-proposal that reportedly demanded compensation for war damages and a total withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region. And we also see nuclear dust. The U.S. continues to insist on the removal of all enriched uranium, which Iran has so far refused to surrender, claiming it is buried in secure locations. Now, of course, President Trump stated that he is willing to wait a couple of days for a final response before deciding whether to resume military attacks.
Yeah, and interesting in there, you see, The conversation stays on the same issues.
Yes.
Uranium, the Strait of Hormuz, compensation, of course, a halting of the axis of resistance. There is something called the axis of resistance, which is a partnership that Iran has within the region with what you would call friendly forces to it. That includes Hezbollah, the Houthi in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, and many, many others in Iraq. The Turks in Iraq and others. And you see, the US is insistent on some of those issues, but Iran is saying, come on guys, this is our nation. And even more surprising is, for example, when you talk about uranium, it is actually the United States that partnered with Iran to start that program many years ago, before 1979.
Yes.
And because of the disagreement, now they realize it is a very bad program. And it's problematic now to say that a system and an initiative that has taken over 40 years, you destroy it in 1 month or 1 day, with a lot of investment, with many people working in that sector, with learners that have started that bit of science in the universities, with professionals. Where do they go after that? So it becomes a bit challenging for the state of Iran, and we can only wait to see what the points of agreement will be, especially that Iran is insistent that for them they are only undertaking enrichment of uranium for specifically humanitarian activities, that is production of electricity, use in the medical field. We do know that it is a very important technology as far as treatment of cancer is concerned. And they say that is all we need it for. But the adversary is saying you must put it away completely.
Oh, so the US does not want it to be there in the first place.
Yes, they are saying completely, give it up. And you just read there that, okay, if you don't want to give it up completely, first put it away for at least 12 years. And 12 years is such a short and long time, depending on where you look at it from.
So I think what I would want to understand, but also what the viewer would want to understand there, by the US saying put it away completely, do they want to have access to it, or do they want Iran to find ways as a country to put it away completely?
They want to have access and to take it.
Interesting.
Such that Iran no longer owns it at any level.
Then another question would be, this is a mineral that's in my country, then why would you come to take access, to rather have access now, of that mineral?
That's the greatest point of concern for the Iranians.
Exactly.
They say you are infringing on our sovereignty as a nation. We choose what we want to do as a country, and it is not in your limits to come and dictate for us what we should do or not do. And that even goes even in the more shocking news that came out this week of how the plan by US and Israel was to when they collapsed the government, the Iranian government as it is, they had proposed in their circles to install President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who had been Iranian president before, between 2005 and 2013. And it was so shocking that these two nations actually wanted to sort of appoint a president for this country. And so when you feed this idea of choosing which economics you can do and you cannot do, then they want to choose who the leader should be. We also remember Donald Trump's comments of saying he wanted to have a voice in choosing who the new supreme leader should be. Then that tells you that there is, yes, among many reasons, the imperial factor that is still present in some of the deliberations of these nations.
Definitely. Quite interesting right there. Like you did mentioning, the factor is still in there. But anyway, in regards to that, the president still says, or rather the US president to be specific, says that he's still willing to wait for a couple of days. So we do not know how that will pan out, but we still hope that, I do not know if it's possible for them to still have several talks before, any kind of war erupts.
They are surely going to talk. Understandably, there is a document that the United States sent to Iran, like you've told us there. I do know that Iran is going to study this document. They will also send back a document that where they are trying to draw a compromise, to find a compromise and see how really they can work together. They will eventually work together.
Yes.
And because at the end of the day, there is no other means of ending the war. It either ends or it ends. Even when you look at countries like South Korea and North Korea, who are technically at war since 1953, you also realize there is a point at which they said, let us agree on these 2-3 things and stop the fighting.
Yes.
You don't have a comprehensive agreement, but there is no fighting, direct fighting. So even Iran and US, and understandably that they are talking at the highest levels, it gives you the impression that there is goodwill for the talks, and certainly we shall have a conclusion at the end of the day.
Definitely, and we continue to hope that something good will come out of these peace talks and that a war will not erupt. And of course, we still continue to pray for our Iranian brothers and sisters, and even those countries that are really undergoing war. I think a country cannot be the best. It cannot, be at its best when there is war, when you are seeing kids playing and they're carrying, they're literally carrying a dead body. It's quite unfortunate. But yes, we do continue to pray for our brothers and sisters out there. Even as a Christian family station, it is important that we as Christians take time and pray for the nations at large so that we can have peace in the world. Well, that wraps up our international news and, of course, our talk on Iran and US. Right now, it is time for us to head into what's happening in our country, even as we give you more details.